thank you for listening to our call and coming here to participate. Then mine is to talk about should AI be incorporated into academia curriculum? And I'm also going to talk about student and institutional preparedness for future media landscape. And where are we, which is a very good question, and what ethical concerns. And I will start with the background. AI has become a critical component of modern academic landscape, offering significant benefits. It is a living reality shaping almost every aspect of our lives. And from the way students learn in classroom to how journalists report news and how audience consume media, AI has become a powerful force. Aligning with Taylor and Francis Group, the emergence of AI has been one of the most dramatic advancements in technology. Just like any advancement, there can be both excitement and concern. This applies across all sectors, and the education and media landscape are no exception. Then student and institutional preparedness. As the landscape of education continues to evolve, AI showcases powerful blend in education, demonstrate its force that requires careful ethical management. For students, understanding AI is no longer an option, it is a professional necessity. To thrive in the future, students must not only know how to use AI tools, but also how to critique them, applying those responsibly and maintaining human creativity and values in the age of intelligent machines. Then coming to AI, we know that AI is something that it's here to stay, whether we like it or not, but it should come into consideration that we have two different types of AI, which is very much important. The first one is generative AI, and the second one is predictive AI. What is the difference between the two? When you talk generative as well as predictive, what is the difference between the two? You must remember that I'm a lecturer. So I'm involving you. What is the difference between the two? Generative AI and predictive AI. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Amakhalang Ramatena, postgrad in journalism. That's when it predicts
content creation, text, image, video, voice as outputs, research sessions, as well as improving resource allocation efficiency. So we should know that. Gone are the days now when we said, when you go to class and talk to school and do your research, you must make sure that you focus on Wikipedia. You must be aware that everyone or anyone can post. So now we are learning, enhancing engagement, improving critically. Identified institutions. Then coming to ethical concerns, I remember last year we had a student who was not attending classes. Then we requested the student to go and write an email why they didn't write several assessments. And the student just went to AI and wrote, "Help me write this letter." And you know, sometimes students are ignorant in such a way that he just sent that email to us with those square brackets. So it was just copy and paste. So these are the things that we also need to take into consideration as students. Then ethical concerns, number one, academic integrity. AI tools can be misused for plagiarism or ghost writing. And students as well as lecturers, they must move away or shy away from over-reliance on AI because obviously it will affect their critical thinking. Current AI detection systems are imperfect and may falsely accuse students. I can give it as an example. I have a very smart student in the department. She wrote a very good assignment, and the feedback was she used AI. Yes. So that is why here I'm emphasizing false accusing students. Then action that we need to take under academic integrity. You must make sure that we define a clear institutional guideline. We must also make sure that we train staff and students on ethical AI engagement. And it is also important to redesign assessments. I offer advertising and marketing communication as one of the subjects that I teach. So recently, I've noticed that students are sometimes, obviously, they're now reliant on AI. So I was smart enough, I think, I was smart enough. One of my assignments was for students to come up with their own advertisement. And, you know, I was so intrigued by their outcomes. And another thing that I was impressed, we did a trial run, and there were students who raised up their hands while we were busy doing trial run. They said, no, ma'am, we have a problem with this student, because we can see that he was 100% reliant on AI. So this is something which is, we need to think about as lecturers. And now I also have some colleagues who are giving students assignments just during class. Because what is the point of giving you an assignment and go and copy? So this is something that we must make sure that we keep in mind. And another example that maybe we can redesign our assignments or assessments is oral exams, applied projects, and so on and so forth. Then, another ethical concern is bias. Digital inequality can exclude under-resourced students from AI benefits. Accessibility gaps may marginalize students with disability or language barriers. So the action that maybe we should take as an institution, audit AI system for bias before adoption, ensure equitably access to AI tools and resources, and promote inclusive AI practices that reflect diverse content. This is the last slide. In conclusion, I've decided to focus on the guidelines for using AI technologies. By adhering to the following and other guidelines, the use of AI can be a valuable tool for teaching and learning, including preparing students to become future ready. Clarify the purpose. By clarifying the purpose, it means it should be used to enhance learning and provide additional support to students, not to replace human interaction. Then secondly, emphasize critical thinking. In the example that I gave previously, I imply that they should act like they are behind the scenes before the actual assignment, of which I felt it worked very well because they're not using AI there. They are talking about their challenges and the merits and the demerits of coming up with an actual assignment, advertisement. Then privacy and ethical consideration. As stated, the education landscape faces ethical dilemmas around copyright, authorship, and accountability. So openly discuss privacy and ethical implication of AI is very much imperative. Then also we should make sure that we communicate rules. Students should be guided how to use AI ethically and effectively. Like for instance, when you are writing, doing your research, the lecturer or the supervisor concerned must make sure that they sit down with students and give them communicate the rules, which is very much important, so that they know that they are bound by those rules when and they should face the consequences at a later state. I thank you.
A big round of applause for Dr. Mshatoni. Thank you so much, Doc. You're allowed to ask questions. There's a hand. Please introduce yourself, where you're coming from, what you're studying, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Papama. My name is Nolitando Ki. I'm a postgrad student furthering her studies in integrated communications. I'm also an aspiring communications specialist with a track record of digital marketing and stakeholder management. So my question is to Mrs. Mashatoni. Doctor, excuse me, sorry. Excuse me, sorry. Sorry, guys, sorry. So in education, AI has the potential to personalize learning, but in a country with unequal access to digital tools, how do you think we should ensure that AI does not widen the digital division? And what skills do you believe media and communication students should be prioritizing now to remain relevant in an AI-driven industry? Thank you.
I'm glad that here I'm surrounded by people from different industries. So I hope they are listening, that some things should be done in order for us to accommodate all the students, or all individuals in South Africa, so that we raise awareness with regard to AI. That is very much important. And with students, the current students, I think I gave you a practical example, that we are trying by all means to incorporate the traditional as well as the digital space. And it's a work in progress. So everything will be sorted out unless if maybe the industry is not assisting us, as well as our management. Hopefully they are listening. Thank you.
Maybe I can also add on that. We here at the Tshwane University of Technology have what we call the Artificial Intelligence Hub. And we also have a partnership with Intel, where any student from any program can go and advance their skills when it comes to AI and the applications, and how you can apply that in the current program that you're studying. So it's not only from the department, right? So as an individual, seeing the landscape of the media, how it's changing, so you need to match up with that. That's why here at the university, we're saying we want to produce graduates that are future ready. So you know how the future looks like. They've talked about the future. Now you need to personally make the decision for yourself and go to these hubs and say, I want to upskill, in line with the program that I'm studying. I want to match up what the future will present. So just do that. Okay, yeah, thank you. Do we have any more questions? Oh, there's one.
I'm Ratlehile Ratlahani, a journalist at the Faculty of Economics and Finance, and my question is directed to Usis Pamela. I wanted to find out if there's any chance that MDDA can fund bloggers, because 2 years ago I started a blog when I was still unemployed. No, when I was unemployed, I started a blog and I had to let it go because I could not maintain it because I did not have the funds to maintain it. So I wanted to check if there's any chance that MDDA can fund bloggers, if whatever that they're blogging about is of the interest of the community, because my blog focused on teenage suicide because of the rising stats of teenage suicide. Thank you.
Thank you. We just closed our 2025-2026 application call. And yes, we do fund online publications because I believe a blog falls under that. But you need to you fall under small commercial. You need to have a company registered. You need to have your sales documents. You need to have your Google Analytics to see. And also, you did specify that you focus on community content that is of community interest. So we do fund them. So you might try applying next year because we've just closed the call for 2025-26.
Thank you. I am Ompurisa Chishonga, currently doing my 3rd year in language practice, but I am an intern at TUT FM. I'm a journalist. So my question is, I'm gonna quote from your speech. You did mention that artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming how we teach, rather how you teach, communicate, and share information in society. So my question is, how does the presidency view AI's role in strengthening education, media, and communication in South Africa? Well, there are actually two. The second statement is, globally, governments are looking at policies to regulate and encourage safe use of AI. My question is, what frameworks or policies is South Africa considering to ensure responsible and ethical use of AI in communication and education? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I thought that I was off the hook. I was relaxing here. I think that from what I had covered with regards to where we are as a country with AI integration, it's clear that we think that AI is definitely something that we cannot ignore. It's something that we really need to be ready for. And this is evidence in terms of the Presidential Commission. We prepare for the future where there will be disruptions in terms of how we understand work. And I think that what the working group or commission was aimed at doing was to look at all of those various components in terms of saying the 4th industrial revolution is here. Artificial intelligence is here. I'm sure you will have seen, for example, across social media platforms, there are cars that don't have drivers. There's going to come a time where your grocery shopping is not going to have a cashier. There's going to come a time where, like I'm sure right now, you do your banking. I know you students, you have a lot of money. You do your banking. you do your banking on your phone, right? Once upon a time, we needed to go into actual banks and deal with actual tellers. So there's a risk of, I won't say replacement, but rather displacement in terms of jobs. So what happens, you're a journalist or you're a writer, and there are tools that are there that can do the writing for you. I no longer need to hire someone to write for me. I can get an app to do that. So what then become the implications, you know, for the workforce? What becomes the implications for professionals? And I think that that's why there's an emphasis on a human-centered and ethical AI. So the extent to which we're able to center ourselves in the, you know, the growth of AI and understand what our role is vis-a-vis these tools and technologies, like I also indicated earlier, that even in how we tell our stories and in how we communicate, we have the nuances that you won't get from a tool or a technology. So how are you going to reskill the workforce? So you guys are studying journalism. A lot of the skills that you're acquiring now, people will be able to do without you. So what are the implications for you in terms of, for example, the issue of saying you've got an AI hub? Do you want to incorporate some of those, give the change, and you are able to be responsive to say, okay, as a journalist, this is how I can harness, you know, the power of their platforms. Who buys a print newspaper? How do you get your news? Once upon a time, there was a thing that was called like photocopy machines. Those companies have died. Nobody's printing, you know, so people are consuming their news from online platforms. So what are the implications for those print newspapers? To what extent do they have to incorporate and follow their audiences and have digital news publications? As a country, we are off to a good start in terms of the fact that we already have a framework that has been developed as part of the recommendations emanating from that commission. So, but that framework needs to go through a public consultation process. And you need to participate. You need to then shape it in terms of what it becomes and what strategy we have as a country. Obviously within the context of the fact that we also have a continental strategy. But the public consultation is to ensure that, you know, all of the concerns that we have, you know, all of the needs that we have, we're able to ensure that these find expression in terms of what ultimately becomes a country strategy on AI. I'm not sure if I've covered your question, and please remind me of the next question. Yeah, so regulatory framework. Like I've said, we do have a national framework, which I think provide us with a good, solid basis for us to be able to develop an AI strategy. And from there, I think that institutions, like like the GCIS needs to say, okay, from a government communications perspective, what is going to be our response to AI? How are we going to ensure that we are able to integrate it in terms of our communications interventions, and how does it find expression in terms of our policy framework? So I think it's going to be very critical from a regulatory perspective to be able to be cogent and clear. Like I've said, there's issues of fake news, there's issues of disinformation. There are people, like AI has brought on a new career. Fake news is an actual career. There are people who are hired to be bad actors, to interfere with democracies, to interfere with governments, and to provide, this fake news, this disinformation. You guys will just see, there'll be a campaign on social media, you join in, and it's actually a sponsored. Those people get paid to do the disruption. That's an actual career. So from a regulatory framework, we need to be able to articulate ourselves around the risks that come with AI. Deepfakes, to what extent can somebody take my identity and use it as part of their whatever scams that they're doing, or what protections do I have as a citizen? If we want to, for example, as government, we have access to data. So I'm sure you'll have received, okay, you are still students, but as working people, we get random phone calls from people we don't know that somehow have access to our phone numbers, right? Which means that I may have registered for a service like at an F&B, and then without going through me, they decide that they're gonna take my information and they're gonna sell it to an insurance company so that they can market services to me. So to what extent are we then able to say we are going to protect the integrity of our data, and we are going to ensure that we are able to respect data privacy in, as we come up with these technologies, so that we don't then create new problems and new risks and expose people. So I do think that it's going to be very critical for us to ensure that we've got a robust regulatory framework that's going to govern our work around artificial intelligence. I do think that we don't have a choice but to incorporate AI, but we need to understand that it's a tool for us to use to improve our efficiencies and to make us work better and to work smarter, but not something that that is there, or that's coming in the future. All of us are impacted on by AI in some way, shape, or form or other. And I think I do want to underscore as well the fact that the issue of marginalization of communities, there would obviously need to be a principle around ensuring that we don't further widen the digital divide, and that we're able to ensure that as we are advancing, we are not leaving people behind, and we need to ensure that our interventions in this regard are rooted in those principles that are ensuring that we don't leave the poor behind, we don't leave the marginalized behind. We ensure that we're also able to take the rural communities along with us. There was a case study of using drone technology to deliver medicines to a rural community. So there's quite a lot of, initiatives and ideas that are meant to ensure that we're able to ensure that inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Lizelle? There you go.
I just wanted to add quickly on the regulatory side and just highlight what Arati also said about, the participation of ordinary people, particularly youth, in a policy formulation around this regulation that will affect you more so than the older generations. Now again, most of our policies are published in the Government Gazette, which is government's official newspaper for policy announcements. And I would encourage TUT as a facilitator of access to the Government Gazette to engage a lot with the publication of the policies that exist there, particularly around AI, but infusing it into the discussions of, in your journalism students and your communication students on, do these policies that government announces on, is it reflective of your reality? Because it will impact on your reality. And I think that is one of the biggest things why I decided to switch from journalism to government communication was of citizens in this country. And if it must be truly reflective, it needs to have your voice and your participation in a policy. And you must never feel that there is a barrier of you saying, if there's public hearings on a specific policy, and when this AI framework actually comes and is published in the government gazette, that just because you are a student at TUT, you cannot have your say. Right to government, right to parliament, and have your say on these kinds of policies that's actually going to reshape your reality. It's much easier at the beginning of the process to hear how the needs of South Africans are reflected in a policy. And there are mechanisms in place for that. There's a secondary thing that I wanted to talk about is in a policy, besides enabling that environment to give effect to a certain policy, and it boils down to your question that you asked, there also needs to be a question on recourse. Now, as I understand, we should be asking the question of, we've got all these ombudsmen, press ombudsman, this ombudsman. Is it time for us to discuss whether or not we should have an online ombudsman? Or if there is a discussion around that already in government about an online ombudsman, so that there is some form of recourse for people who have their dignity stepped on, to balance the freedom of expression, which is, obviously not absolute. If it infringes on somebody else's right to dignity, what kind of recourse mechanism do we put in place for AI and the online space and the digital space? Is it time for us to start talking whether or not there is going to be relevance for an online ombudsman, and push for that regulatory framework to include an online or some form of ombudsman, so that people who are genuinely hurt by these deepfake creations or AI creations have got some form of recourse? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maybe let's have the next speaker do their presentation, and then we'll continue to ask questions. Right? Are you ready, ma'am? So there's two artists there. A big round of applause to her, please. Atindiwe Saba, she's the managing editor at Code for Africa SA. She's going to speak on the impact of big tech and sustainability of media in South Africa. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's past 1 already. Whew, big tech. I think we all love big tech because we're all sitting on our phones right now and we are probably tweeting, Facebooking, Xing, whatever you call it. We love big tech. Two things I'm going to try and impress upon people today. How excited we should be about artificial intelligence, but also how we need to be quite circumspect about big tech and how we engage with big tech. Okay, so the media industry that most people in this room are in or wanting to get in has gone through three main transformative periods. The first one was the internet. And I think a lot of newspapers were super excited or apprehensive. Some of them were excited, and one of them was a publication I used to work at the Mail and Guardian, one of the first websites to kind of take advantage of the internet transformation. Cool. That was fine. Everyone started to get on board, and that seemed to get the industry more tech-focused, right? And we thought that was it. Then came social media. With social media, things changed. And what the media industry did was to sit back and let big tech decide for us how they are going to communicate to the masses on our behalf. So platforms like Google, like Facebook, they told us as the media industry, go to video. Do lots of video. Everyone wants video. And then they turned around a couple of years later and said, no, that's not what people want. And then they also dictated to us how to publish. And then they started taking the money that was supposed to come to media houses through the ad revenue spend. And now media houses are saying, oh my gosh, I have to go through Google to get ads for my website. And then more people started using social media platforms, therefore not going to buy the newspapers. The question that was asked, who still buys newspapers? Because there was that shift. And we let big tech do that. Big tech, we need to understand, and we need to do our own deep dives in this. Don't just take my word for it. Big tech decided that the media was no longer important, decided to take all of the information that journalists like myself were creating and build their big empires. You need to understand that big tech is only big tech because of the information that we generate. Do we understand that? Right now, Facebook is going to feed its large language model, which is GPT. Well, no, like GPT, it's got its own large language model. It's going to be feeding its language model based on your information that you have given them. That large language model is going to make Meta, not Facebook, Meta is the big company, is going to make Meta a hell of a lot of money. And yet, it still doesn't really care about women or women who look like you on their platforms. They've cut down on moderation. Women are consistently abused on their platforms. They don't even care about our languages on top of that. So we need to have a very clear sense of our relationship with big tech. Then came the third technological shift, which is what we're trying to grapple with here. We throw around this AI thing all the time. Oh my God, AI this, AI this. What we're currently dealing with right now is generative AI. It's predictive AI. Generative, as it was explained a little bit earlier on, what that is. It's all about generating content. How does it generate that content? Large language models are built on your information that you have given these big tech companies. And a lot of that information does not reflect our lived experiences, does not reflect our languages, our nuances. So let's think very clearly about this generative AI that we use so often. I don't even want to think for ourselves, especially when it comes to context of Africans, Black women in South Africa. Past generative AI, the reason why I make the distinction of generative AI and artificial intelligence, because it's quite important, because AI has been around for what, 50 plus years? It's just that we have never understood how we are engaging with it or how it is actually in our spaces. But where I want to go with this is my excitement part about artificial intelligence. And even though we're only getting excited now about generative AI, it's been there. A lot of the work that my team does, and I briefly mentioned something about disinformation earlier and Africa and da-da-da, probably a lot of people are just like, what is this? A lot of the work that my team does, which is investigating social media and the conversations that are happening on social media, uses artificial intelligence to be able to track trends, to be able to understand, to make the connections online, to be able to pick up particular slurs and keywords that are used to attack minority groups and people who look like you and me on social media platforms. So artificial intelligence has been there for quite a while. But for us to better harness, or, you see this word harness, some of these terms, I'm like, no, this is a generative AI term. Normal people don't use these terms. So for us to better use and better engage and better use AI, we have to understand what it is, where is it coming from. And I love that there's this center. I'd love to come and visit the center at some point just to see what information is there. Because once you have the information in any space that you are in, AI can become a tool. And that's what I'm excited about. So, never mind all these shifts in our media industry and in all industries. Aside of generative AI, there's also artificial intelligence that automates things, robotics, all of that. And that is helping a lot in other sectors. For instance, in farming, there's a couple of case studies right now in Limpopo province where people are using artificial intelligence to understand the weather patterns and for them to be able to plant throughout the year and not be worried about, oh my gosh, it's the El Nino now, and oh my gosh, it's going to rain, too early, too late, when should I plant? So those predictive tools, predictive AI, are actually assisting. When we're talking about health, where you want to build a robot that can actually quickly scan for particular basic symptoms, that's artificial intelligence coming in. So there's artificial intelligence in so many of the other industries as well. It's just that in our industry, we use a lot of it for generative. And how then do we start thinking about, in our industry, in the media industry, in the information industry, in the civic tech industry, how then do we start thinking about how do we use AI for the sustainability of small newspapers, for the sustainability of small publication? How do we start using AI for that? Now, people have mentioned that AI is an actual tool, and that's how we need to be engaging with it. It's not this all-encompassing void of nothingness that will take all of our jobs and that will leave us just stuck on our phones. It's a tool, just like any of the other technological advances that have happened. But it's a tool that allows us to do things so much faster and with a lot more precision we've seen these days. So, a couple of things need to happen before we're able to use this tool for us to change our sector or our different environments. We have to have a very clear understanding of it. What's the basis of it? Where does it get this information? Is it information that reflects my society? Is it information that reflects Africa? Does it understand my... Do you know how much money GBT makes? Do you know the people that did create GBT? Do you know if they're involved in any other companies that could be, I don't know, part of the Sudan war? Maybe you care about the Sudan war. Are you critical about the tools that you are using? Be critical. Find out this information. See if there are alternatives out there. Because if you don't know what you're using, you will get lost in it. And they will keep taking information whilst they bring nothing back into these communities. So that's the first thing. Then you need to think about the problems in your community. What is an issue? Not even in your community, maybe in your industry, maybe in your classroom. Because what will drive the growth in our economy, in our country, on our continent, is the innovation that needs to happen. There's always problems. And then, how does AI assist in us solving those problems? So one of the tools that my team has created was to begin seeing how images are generated, which kind of tool actually has generated these images, and if there are deep fakes. So we're using the same AI that's creating these deep fakes to actually flag that these are deep fakes. Some of the tools that we've been thinking around is to assist journalists just coming up with story ideas through data. Some of the tools that young people in Kenya have come up with is how for communities in rural areas that have no access to Wi-Fi or data, how those rural communities can still engage AI that are using publicly available databases. I heard a couple of people speaking about linguistics, language. They're using those databases to create LLM-based bots to speak our languages when we're asking questions. Can you imagine somebody in the rural areas being able to ask a bot, hi, I need to get 350 Rand from the Department of Social Development, but they're asking it in their language. They don't have to be encumbered by, isingesi and says isingesi, how do I articulate that? Or they're going to ask different information about a bank or a private service that they want, and they're able to engage with their languages. Where are these bots in our communities? What AI allows us to do is to think bigger, is to think outside of the box. Our basic needs of everyday needs, how do we use AI to assist in those? But even for our industry, artificial intelligence, and I'm going to be talking at WITS for the next 2 days, trying to teach reporters about how to use artificial intelligence to better tell their stories. Where are our audiences? Should we be doing AI-generated audio? I prefer to listen to my news instead of actually reading it. So I'd really love a voice that sounds like somebody I know. Which tools are out there for that? So I have a problem, meaning that I don't like to read off of my phone. So can I get a tool out there? Can I build a tool? It gets so much easier to build these tools, going to the AI center, speaking to the data science guys, speaking to the tech guys, building tools that will assist in our learning space, building tools that will allow for the media space to be sustainable as well. Getting our audiences, what kind of content are they looking for? Where do they want it? Would they rather speak to a bot on their WhatsApp rather than actually reading a story? Do they want to ask questions? Then instead of us as the media dictating to you what you want to read. These are problems that are there, and AI can help solve them. That's how we must start thinking about artificial intelligence. And yes, there are many issues. As I've said, big tech is all about power, making money, doesn't really care about people who look like us, especially in the global south, which is Africa and other countries where it's low-income economies. But they are basing so much of how much money they're making off of us. So we need to be coming together from the different disciplines. I was saying just earlier on, from the different disciplines. Can you imagine if somebody from the journalism discipline got together with a data science discipline, what magic could happen there to solve a particular problem, create a particular application or a tool or a way to think about a systemic issue? It becomes completely different. And what artificial intelligence will allow us better to do is to make those connections, is to build solutions that are all-encompassing and less divided into silos. So my thing is that I'm super excited about artificial intelligence. I'm working with teams that are trying to come up with ideas, that are building ideas, whether it's communities that have civil society that has a particular concern or a particular problem, and then talking to a think tank to say, you guys should be able to build this. This is what these people want. This is what the user experience needs to be. Should it be on their phone? Should it be in a portal? What are the kind of dynamics? So AI can allow us to think so much broader. And that's what I want to leave here with today. Not a fear that it's going to take your job. It probably will. However, now if we are engaging with artificial intelligence, what kind of job could the future look like? What kind of, the job you want to do, what is it going to look like in the future? Think about that. Think about red and pink ponies riding in the streets. That's the level at which we should be going at, because then it allows us to land on the clouds, which is a much softer place than not being able to engage in your economy, in your country. I thank you.
I think we needed that. I saw everyone was paying attention, right? Any questions? Thank you so much, Hati. Okay, we can start there and come this side.
Good day, everyone. My name is Felicity Makafola. I am studying integrated communications. I'm doing my second year, and I'm currently also serving as an academic mentor. So my first question is directed to Me Atandiwe. So do you think AI can ever truly understand cultural nuance and emotion in communication, or will there always be limits where humans can thrive? And the second question directed to Me Liesel. Do you believe that media professionals have power more than politicians, seeing that you guys constantly speak to them more or less more than like the politicians? And my last question is directed to Me Ati. What's one thing you wish more young women in communication understood about navigating spaces that are still male-dominated?
All right. Let me take the first question and then I'll move it over. Cultural nuance and will it ever take over humans? So what off with in a lot of the sessions I do is what makes us human. If you think about the things that make us human, you cannot build those into any robot, no matter how many times you teach it or you pump it with information about be nice, speak assertively, da-da-da. And you can see, if you chat to GPT, it's like your friend. You can program it to be your friend and be sweet and oh, therapist, everything you need. But it will never have a soul. And there are specific conscious things that we do because we have a soul. And those are the things that actually will be worth a lot more money down the line. It will be able to do a lot of the menial labor kind of stuff that we think we're afraid to let go of. But the human touch will be what people start to pay for down the line if you really think about it. So there's that part of the answer. But the second part of my answer was that I would like it to have the cultural nuance. Because if you think of all the LLMs that are currently out there, I was talking to a bunch of feminists in Kenya last week, and we were talking about how these LLMs are basically white, middle-aged European men. That's what the LLMs are. Your GPTs, your perplexities, your whatnots, because that's most of the information that's been fed to them. And the information about our lived experiences is not part of the information that is fed into these LLMs, or it's a very small part of information fed into these LLMs. So yes, I would like at one point for the LLMs to have cultural nuance, especially for people who look like us. And in some countries, they are building their own LLMs so that they're able to speak. Language is such a huge thing. And when you ask that language question, it's such a big thing. Whoever's language you're speaking, they have the power to tell the story. And power is a big kind of interplay in this AI world that we're currently in. So once they're able to pick up the language and once they're able to pick up the culture and the nuances, then they can better assist you in building the solutions you want to build. The solutions we need are not the same as the solutions in the Western world. We need these LLMs, and there is work in different pockets on the continent and in South Africa that is building LLMs that not just speaks our language, but is fed off our languages and nuances and cultures as well. So 2 parts, they can't be human, but I would like them to have a cultural nuance to better assist us in the solutions that we're trying to build. There was a second question. What was the second question? Lisa, yeah.
Media versus politicians. When it comes down to media, particularly media in South Africa, I think we need to understand it from a historical point of view, then from a systematic point of view, a structural point of view. When you talk about power, you're talking about influence. Have influence. I mean, it's communication is a science. So there's no way that you can say that they do not have influence. But what you can say, especially in this current environment where is that the level of influence the media will have depends on your receiver's level of education, their background, if they go and test that information. I mean, I've got my own version as a policy political journalist that I used to, cover Parliament for a long time, I think probably before you were born and stuff, sadly. But the thing about media all over the world is that there is always an agenda. They push a certain agenda, okay? And you as their reporters are being used as a tool for that particular agenda. That is fact. And the sooner you realize that, and I mean, it can be controversial what I'm saying, that, you know, that free, fair journalism, that is actually a myth that they are propelling. And I'll tell you why it's a myth. Freedom of expression, yes, they can express, but they're expressing it according to a certain editorial line that has been sanctioned by board members, by media owners that serve a certain constituency and need of a constituency, now again, or a certain readership. And South Africa's constitution allows for that. It allows for different media or voices of expression, whether it's through a media house, whether it's through a community media, whether it allows that kind of democracy, participatory democracy, allows for those kinds of voices, whether you agree with it or not. Now again, you know, in terms of the influence that they have and the power that they have maybe in policy, is where maybe the influence of politicians then rise above media. Now again, so media may have a certain influence to a certain extent, but when it comes down to, say, policy pronouncements, policy needs, policy, you know, putting certain legislation in place and so forth, the administration, and I'll call it the administration or the public administration, has got greater influence, again, compared to media. So media's got a certain extent of influence over the way you see the world. I mean, it is the window through your, you know, to the soul of a nation, or what you're seeing out there, how you're getting to know about, you know, what the streets of Paris look like now. You can take a virtual tour through media and whatever else. So working in an environment, say particularly when RT and I, we go to Parliament, you're working in an environment where each stakeholder has got a level of influence over you. You know, it's a high stakes, influential environment. And you as young journalists always need to know that when you enter into a newsroom, if you decide to enter into a newsroom, you have to, for the sake of keeping your job, is tell a story according to that particular newsroom's agenda. Okay. Because there's different versions of the truth. There are different versions of the story. You know, I mean, that obviously would have been 101 journalism. You know what I mean? The way you see a car crash standing on the left side looks different from how we see a car crash standing on the left side. It could be on the left side or the right, my right. Now again, I see that the perpetrator was the driver. On the left side, see, no, but it was the pedestrian who was at fault. Different versions of the story. Now again. And that, for us, government communication, that's how we see it as well. Government has also got its own version of the policy story. Now again, media's got a version of the story, of the policy story, you know, maybe the NHI and whatever, they will tell a story a certain way to serve a certain community and a certain constituency. Government tells the story of NHI this way. Now again, it's the same story, but it's the version of the truth that differs. And if you test that truth with multiple sources, not just believing anything that you read in Times, you know, or Times Media, or you know, Al Jazeera, whatever, you start to get a balanced version of the truth. So always, even when you become a journalist or communication specialist, test your sources. We're in an age now where alternative media sources is now coming to the fore. Pretty much like how America and the UK matured. 20 years ago, there was no alternative media sources in South Africa. Okay. There was just ENCA, SABC, and you have your radio station and so forth. Now online has made sure that there's alternative sources of media. Now again, you access, you get this lady's blog, her blog, alternative sources of information. And then you will start to form your own critical version of the truth, basically. So it just depends on the influence scale, the receiver's extension of knowledge, and whether or not the receiver, you as the recipient of the information, wants to test the information. And I would encourage you, test every single information, whether it's a government source, a media source, online, test it with different sources of the same story, and you'll start to form your own truth around the story. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lizelle. There was also a question for Artie. We're going to take one more question, and then we wrap up. Right. Artie, would you like to respond? But I think in her deliberations, she did touch on it a number of times.
Yes.
But let me just allow you just, a minute or so.
I think everybody wants to break for lunch now.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. And I tend to be long-winded, but I'm going to keep it short. In terms of the advice that I can give to young women, in the media space, but also just as professionals, I think that the most important thing that I can say is that you need to believe in yourself, and you need to believe in the set of skills and the person that you are, that you bring to the table. Don't allow yourself to be told that you do not belong, or there are spaces that you do not belong to. I mean, there are people who have got, that thing that's saying that says you need to have double the skills to get half the recognition. There are people who have got, the other gender. They come into a room with the biggest confidence, only to realize that they actually have less to offer. So I think as young women, we tend to minimize ourselves, and I think that it's important for us to be able to appreciate the fact that we actually do have a lot to offer. Yes, it may be different. We are a diverse nation, and it's important to not undermine yourself or play down, the person that you are and what you bring to the table in terms of your skills offering and in your profession. And how you do that, for me, is that you strive to become the best at what you do. When you are good at what you do, and when you are, expert. I mean, no one is an expert. I don't consider myself an expert in social media. I consider myself a student. I'm learning. It's a developing technology. But I strive to constantly improve my knowledge and to innovate and to try different things and to experiment. And that's how I gain knowledge. So how you build confidence in yourself is to have something to do something that you love and to have something that you're good at, and you keep improving, and I think that will give you the confidence that you need. The other thing that matters is that you need to identify women in the workplace and even outside of your chosen profession that inspire you, that you look up to, that you like, and you need to reach out to them and speak to them. A lot of my opportunities, growth opportunities in my career have come from other women, and not necessarily men. So you need to build, strategic relationships. You need to network. You need to put yourself out there. You need to know who is doing what and what you can learn from them. There's a wealth of knowledge that you can get from women who have got experience. And who are able to share that knowledge for free. Like I feel like if I had time, I would love to sit with young people and talk to them about my life, my career, what the challenges have been, And so I think you need to make sure that you reach out to women who are more experienced than you, who may be in the field that you'd like to grow into, and actually build relationships with them. And that's how you build your network. And I cannot, emphasize the importance of having a network. The opportunities that come, you never know where your opportunities are going to come from. That's why I'm saying put yourself out there all the time. And then the last thing, representation matters. Liesl made reference to the fact that in a newsroom, you will have an editorial imperative. But you need to ask yourself as a young black woman, what then becomes my responsibility to the people that look like me as I go about my work? And I think that it's important to always understand that you need to strike that balance. If you are in a media space, as black women, I'm not young, but as black women, we want to see representation. I want to see somebody that looks like me. I want to hear from somebody who comes from my community. I want to hear how they beat the odds. And I think that it's important, for you to always, at the back of your mind, remember that as you have people that you look up to, there are people that look up to you as well. And question yourself about what then your responsibility becomes in that space in terms of ensuring that representation. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Actually, that brings us to... So that's it for the 2025 Women in Media panel discussion. We're definitely coming back again next year, bigger and better, And I would like now to invite Tsegofaso Mudubu. I butcher his name all the time. But anyway, it's revenge because people can't say Chisikawe. That's my surname. But anyway, so she's going to do the vote of thanks and closing remarks. But before, I hand over to her, to the panelists, thank you. You've been brilliant. We learned so much today, eh? They've been amazing. But you as well as the audience, you've been amazing. So thank you so much to all of you. Over to you, ma'am.
I'll do it from here. Mine is to thank Tshwane University of Technology. When we came here 5-6 years ago and pitched this idea, we didn't know that this would become almost like a legacy project. And I just want this platform is created for you. And we hope that in the next 5 years we'll be going, we are on cohort 12, of the Women in Media. And we would like to see some of you sitting here, actually, And I think that's what you must aspire for with this project. I just want to thank all the panelists. You've been amazing. We reached out. No one said, what's the fee? You all came. You gave your time, you gave your expertise, and I know that you're going to keep paying it forward. So I just want to thank all of you, your organizations, institutions that you're affiliated with, and the great work that we're doing just to improve and change the landscape of how young women in our industry think. There's a study that just came out by one of the colleagues, and it's around why South African women leave the newsroom. And I would encourage every single one of you, particularly the students, to read that and reverse so that we see a report that says, why are women staying in the newsroom or they're staying in communications? We also have our own challenges. Myself, Ati, there are few female spokespersons. We need to change that. That's our challenge, I think. I'll stop there. And I just wanted to make one last input on a question of how do we get into the public service? What are the practical steps? I want to encourage the students to use the work integrated learning platform to say, I want to go to GCIS, or I want to go to So I wanted to say, please use your work integrated learning to target the government departments that you see the communicators are inspiring for you, so that you can actually then make an impression. Then, as Liesl said, then there's the internship. Then people can call you back because they'll say, we had that learner for 6 months and we want them back. So please leverage your work integrated learning. Even if there's no stipend that will be given. I know some other companies give stipends. please, I'm just pleading with those that want to go into the public service. And I wanted to spotlight Atta's work at Code for Africa to say Code for Africa offers brilliant online training on misinformation and disinformation at zero cost. I've just completed one. So you also get onto these organizations. They offer fellowships as well. So if you get into a fellowship, you're affiliated with an international program, you are more likely to be shortlisted for an international scholarship. By the time you come back and you apply for a job in this country, your CV says international experience, and that's something. So I just wanted to share those two in addition to what the colleagues have said, how you can leverage yourself, use those international opportunities. Go to DHET, they've got an international scholarship page, and that's how you can then move yourself forward and grow your wings. Yeah. So with that said, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. We're going to present the gifts. Thank you. Can we have a photo? A family photo? Yes. Who's gifting the host? No, we all are. Yeah. Okay. I think we can just take one. Yeah. Whoopsie. First, let's do the group photo and then. Sorry.
Ladies, with that said, thank you so much. You guys have been brilliant. We're serving lunch. A big